Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Not going to Greentext this, deal with it, friends. No, but I love you guys, enjoy, I hope. When I was in elementary school, there was an annual camping trip for every class. So each class got to essentially pick their campground off of a designated list and then go camp there. All the places were within 3 to 4 hours of the school, as I remember. This is in Washington state, so they all were in pretty heavily forested areas. I think maybe it was kind of a lottery system if several classes wanted the same spot. But anyhow, it was on the last week, or maybe the week before, of school. Just kind of, "Ya done good, kids" type of reward. Well, that's what I always figured, not entirely sure. Because we still had to meet up a couple times a day to learn about nature and do assignments. Haven't met anyone else whose school did this, so I guess it's unusual. So 4th grade is finishing up. Almost camping time. Class friends and I are all getting excited. Talking about maybe revisiting this camp that had a sweet layout, next to a lake. So we could go fishing if we wanted. Think maybe there was a little zipline thing too if the water had warmed enough. Just little boy things. End up getting shafted on the pics though. Don't get any place we've been before. End up going to this place, which I will never return to, called the Puffer Butte Lodge. Show up to school early Monday morning, and everyone loading on their designated buses with all their gear. This place had cabins, so we didn't have to bring tents along this year. Leave around the time school's supposed to start 8:30–9. The only adults on the trip besides the teacher and bus driver, who wasn't staying, were a few volunteer parents. That year there were 3 moms, can't remember whose, and Brandon plus my friend Jeff's fathers. More than 20 but less than 30 kids in the class. Think we were on that bus for 3 hours before we finally rolled in. He dropped us off, and teacher verified his return date of same time, Friday morning, unless there was a change of plans. So, we have no vehicles out here, but I'm a little kid, this was no concern of mine. This is before everyone had cell phones too, but the lodge had a landline for any kind of emergency. Place seems pretty legit. Nice lodge with a kitchen so whole class can meet up for meals and whatnot. A couple ping pong tables and a foosball table in there too. There were maybe 10 cabins and the lodge was pretty big, so that place could have accommodated quite a few more people. We only ended up using 4 of the cabins, 2 for boys, 2 for girls. They had bunk beds so easy to fit us all in there. Get all our stuff unpacked. Argue over who gets top bunk, you know how it goes. Ended up losing rock, paper, scissors, or however we decided, so, I'm on the bottom next to one of the cabin's 4 windows. 1 window on each side of the cabin, 2 of which are in the front and back doors. The cabins were all unique as I recall though. I think one didn't even have windows, and some had more than 4. The bathroom, shower place was separate from the cabins, located basically in the center of camp, in between where our cabin and the girls' cabins were. It's lunchtime by now, so everyone convenes in the lodge for some sandwiches, and our teacher announces we're all to go on a hike after lunch. All students are given these worksheets and we're to document 2 types of flower, 2 types of animal, insects, and a few more things our teacher wanted us to look for like that. We have to draw them, and then write a little description about it and what have you. So, the hike begins. Seems like we're mainly traveling uphill. Parents are helping keep an eye on the children, as we'd stop every 10 minutes or so, and would roam a bit off trail to inspect possible finds. Everything goes according to plan. We've all filled out our worksheets and turned them in to our teacher as we start heading back to camp. Must have been 3 to 4 p.m. by then. Teacher heads into the lodge with our worksheets, and a few moms to start dinner prep for 30 people, not exactly sure if she had planned on grading them or what, and us children got our free time on under the other parents' supervision. They had a nice field in front of the lodge, with volleyball net, and a backstop so we could play some kickball. Didn't have a bat, or anything, but kickball was just fine. About 10 minutes later, the teacher comes out of the lodge looking concerned. She asked to speak with Jeff's father in private. Can see them through the lodge window. She is holding someone's assignment, and Jeff's father begins to look a little rattled. He comes out and asks Eric, a student, to come inside. Can see Jeff's pops and the teacher asking him about his assignment. Both looked pretty unsettled. Eric just seemed to be explaining it, not upset or anything. Eric comes back out. What was that all about? I asked. The teacher said I'm making up that animal I saw, but I didn't, I swear. I just don't know what it is, he said. Never got to see his drawing personally, but the teacher and Jeff's dad clearly didn't like what they had seen. Why had they seemed so upset? Not like we're all the greatest artists in 4th grade, but you'd think a teacher would let your terrible drawing skills slide, you know? A big bell at the lodge sounded around 6 to 7 to summon everyone in for dinner. A few of the moms had whipped up some burgers and tots for everyone. After dinner, the dads set up a fire at the fire pit near the lodge. We made s'mores and sang some songs we had learned in school, and then told some spooky stories. Around 9 it was time to call it a night, so we put out the fire and headed for the cabins. As I recall, Jeff's dad, who was our cabin leader, had brought along The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, or some variation of those stories. He read aloud the first chapter or so and everyone dozed off. I woke up in the middle of the night, with an urge to poop. So, I flicked on our cabin's porch light, and grabbed my flashlight. Then I made my way to the bathrooms. There was a decent-sized light out front of it, so it was easy enough to locate at night, but I always feel safer with a flashlight. Took care of my business and started to head back toward my cabin. Now I started getting that feeling, the one so many people get in these situations, of being watched. I could see the cabin porch light in the distance, but something didn't feel right. I could have sworn that our cabin had been the one right next to the cabin whose porch light was on, and that cabin, whose light was on, had been unused thus far on our trip. But as it was late, and I left the cabin in such haste, when I gotta poop, I just assumed I had mixed up the cabins. Walking up to the porch, feeling creeped out, I realize I can hear something, kind of muffled. It's Jeff's dad's loud-ass snoring, in the cabin next to the one I'm approaching. Hear floorboards creak inside, and then the porch light flicks off, and I book it for my actual cabin, only like 20 feet probably, as I could hear that death snore. The porch light of our cabin was no longer on. Check it when I get back inside, and it was working fine. No one is unaccounted for. If it was someone that was with the group, they definitely weren't from my cabin. So, I climb back into my lower bunk. Of course, the window that my bunk is stationed at is facing right out at that cabin. As I'm trying to fall back asleep, over that snore, I swear I could see the interior lights of that cabin turn on out of the corner of my eye. Maybe even a flickering, but I was so petrified, I didn't look over. Tuesday morning, Jeff's dad had set an alarm, and was making sure we all got up. I tell Jeff's dad about what happened last night. He tells everyone in the cabin that if we need to go to the bathroom, we are to go in pairs from here on out, even if it's the daytime. Hear the faint ring of the bell coming from the mess hall, and we make our way down. After breakfast we had some free time for an hour or two, and then our teacher said it was time to go on another hike. She didn't pass out the activity sheets this time. We went on a different trail than the one we took the first day. This time, she was just pointing out various things to us, and telling us their name, and things like how Native Americans used to use this herb for something. Some time passes, we had packed trail snacks with us, so we decided to take a quick break. Didn't notice it at first, but after we had been sitting around for a few minutes we started to smell this horrible rotten scent, like I couldn't even eat after I started to smell that. The dads with us checked a couple 100 feet around our perimeter, and when they came back suggested we get moving as soon as possible. Never found out what they saw, but they definitely seemed like they wanted to get the F out of there. Get back to camp for lunch within an hour or so. The dads keep glancing behind us the whole hike back. Make some sandwiches and grab some chips. Free play initiated. So, me and Jeff are running around doing fourth grader things. I tell him about the bathroom incident last night, and the cabin next to ours, and being the ballsy mother he is, he says, "Let's go check out that cabin." Very hesitantly I agree, at least it's daytime, I tell myself. We tell the parents we're going to head to the bathrooms real quick. We're paired up, so they let us. Make our way over to the cabin. Appears normal outside, he runs right up, and opens the door. Wait, I yell, I'm still spooked from last night, but he holds none of my uneasiness. He's inspecting the cabin while I'm just peeking in from the front porch. I see something on the bed nearest the window. And this is the window that had I looked last night, I would have been peering into from my cabin. There was what I thought was a lucky rabbit's foot keychain, if anyone remembers those. Weird, someone left their lucky keychain behind. Like this cabin is completely empty of anything, but this rabbit's foot on that bed. Get closer to it, and I realize, this isn't a fucking keychain. I could see a small patch of dried blood underneath where it lay, and could see the uneven edge of a recently departed, maybe ripped off, but not cut, limb. Jeff, WTF is this? We exchange some horrified looks, and book it to Jeff's dad, and tell him what we just found. Insist he come have a look. When we return to the cabin with him, it's just gone, but that dry blood patch isn't. He seems a little weirder out, and doesn't think his own son would make this up, but tells us to go back and play with everyone else. He's right behind us on our way back down. We join up with the other kids, and he pulls Brandon's dad aside, to discuss what we just had seen. Couple hours of kickball pass, and it's about time to have some dinner. They made us a bunch of Chef Boyardee raviolis and garlic bread. Ah yes. Repeat the fire like the night before. Head to the cabins at 9 or so again. This time though, before we go to bed, Jeff's dad tells us that if we have to go to the bathroom or anything to wake him up, and he'll go with us. Wake up in the middle of the night again, no particular reason this time. Well, not in the nature of having to use the bathroom or whatever. Just wake up. Jeff's dad's snoring may have done it. I don't even understand how a woman could sleep in the same room as him on a regular basis, it was that ridiculously loud. Not as spooked as the night before. Roll around trying to get back to sleep. Glance out the window, and in the window of the other cabin there is a human silhouette. I scream like a little bitch, and wake up half the cabin including Jeff's dad. Tell him that I just saw someone in the other cabin. He looks as scared as I am. He had brought a machete and one of those giant spotlights on this trip, like 10,000 candle power, if that helps anyone's frame of reference. Tells us to stay in the cabin and lock the door behind him until he's coming back. We all watch in horror though my bedside window as he reluctantly makes the 20 to 30 foot trek to the neighboring cabin. He's got the machete up ready to swing, shining the light in the windows he can see from his vantage. Continues to slowly walk up the porch, machete held up, and ready to swing at anything. He doesn't enter the cabin. He just shines the light around the cabin from the front door window. From inside our cabin, we didn't hear anything, but suddenly Jeff's dad does a quick 180. He's looking around, shining his light at the tree, shrub line. He had heard something behind him. We're shitting bricks, and we hear him yelling at whoever or whatever he may have heard or even seen. Eventually, we see him lower the machete. He comes back and says he didn't see anyone in there, but he heard something. Get almost no sleep the rest of the night. Didn't hear Jeff's dad snore either, so I assume he was up too. Wednesday morning we're all up having breakfast. Jeff's dad pulls the other parents and the teacher aside. They discuss what happened the night before, and whatever else had been going on, maybe Eric's picture, and whatever the smell was in the woods, if they had indeed found the source. Our teacher used the phone in the lodge after they conferred. She made it clear that something unexpected had happened, and she told us that she had wanted to end the trip that day, but because of some conflict with the bus, we couldn't get one up there until tomorrow. We didn't have any of the regular scheduled activities, hikes or whatever learning camp experience that we would normally have that day. After breakfast, the parents had us pack our things from the cabins and move our stuff to the mess hall. We would all be sleeping together in one building that night. We pretty much just got free play all day besides meal breaks, didn't have a campfire that night and just hunkered down in the lodge as it started to get dark. After what had happened the night before, I wanted to sleep as far as possible from any of the windows in the lodge. We all dozed off eventually. I woke up again that night too, pitch black in the mess hall. Jeff's dad's snore, it echoed so loudly in the lodge, I wondered if anyone else was even asleep. Glanced around the room, and at the far end of the lodge, I saw someone standing there. There was a single-person bathroom at that end of the lodge, so I was hoping it was just someone in line for the loo. 1 or 2 minutes pass, I check back, still just standing there. Start to freak out. Can't even bring myself to make a sound, and even if I did, the snore outweigh it so heavily. I reach for my flashlight and shine it down there. No one there anymore. I lay back down, thinking I'm just overly scared from the previous incidents. Night eyes readjust, look down that way again, and now, like 15 feet left of where that figures was, there it was again, right by the foosball table. Hide in my sleeping bag, just terrified. It sounds like Jeff's dad's snore is getting closer to me or he's just snoring even louder. Poke my head back out again, the figure has moved maybe 10 feet closer, nope, back under the cover. Snore keeps getting louder and louder. It sounds like he's standing right above my sleeping bag, snoring, or mimicking that sound, right in my fucking face. Finally, my vocal cords break through, and I muster out a yelp. Immediately the sound stops. Jeff's and Brandon's dad comes walking inside from the front porch. He wasn't even sleeping. He was out on the front porch with Brandon's dad. They were smokers, maybe pot too. Didn't sleep the rest of that night. Bus showed up in the morning, never knew what that was, and Jeff and I could never put the pieces together.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.